Professionals within the sporting industry may have shorter careers than those in more traditional professions. Jeff Garrett's going to talk about what mortgage lending looks like if you are a sports professional. Jeff, is that a fair summary of one of the key challenges?
Absolutely, and it depends really what sport you're actually involved in, but certainly longevity will come into it in terms of how long a lender will consider making the loan for, in terms of the actual length of the term.
So mortgage term is the biggest challenge in terms of securing debt, or does the unreliable nature of income, if perhaps we're thinking about prize money for somebody on a professional tour, which can be very erratic from year to year?
I think also you've got to consider not only what the lender is looking for, you've also got to look at the well-being of the actual client in terms of how long they want to have that mortgage for. If you're a professional footballer, for example, and you're borrowing in your early 20s, it's reasonable to assume that you may have 10 or 12 years left in your career. So to have a mortgage for longer than that period would be irresponsible to a degree, I would suggest, because you just don't know what's beyond, because there are only so many that are going to go into possibly management where their incomes may be similar to that of their playing career.
So actually wise counsel is one of the most important parts of the process before you even get to the borrowing process. That wise, strong, important counsel, particularly for young men and women who don't necessarily have the financial maturity yet to make decisions without good people around them. That's really key.
Advice is paramount. They're young, it's very, very new to them, they haven't gone through the experience before, so they do need an element of guidance in terms of working out the most sensible options for them.
And is the most sensible option typically a relatively short-term repayment mortgage deal which allows them to reach the point where they can work towards the end of a likely career span, debt-free and with a home paid for?
Yeah, I think that makes a great deal of sense. And it will depend, the term of the mortgage will depend on the career and the way that they're paid. If you're in an industry such as tennis or golf, you've got elements of your income that will be prize money, and quite simply, no one knows what that's going to be. The lenders will look at the historic income records, of course, but the other elements that may be more fixed are the contractual elements, where it might be endorsements that they're getting from major brands, and that will flow through in a more regular fashion, which can be certainly more consistent.
How much of a challenge is it that certainly in team sports, oftentimes a professional doesn't know their even medium-term location? So in terms of the minimum terms of mortgages to avoid charges and fees, is that a challenge too?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think, again, you have to consider contract length. If you're in a team sport, most individuals will have a contract for a number of years, be it 1 year left to possibly 5 or 6 years. And that's fundamentally important to the advice that you're giving. So flexibility and the type of mortgage that somebody might want to take out, I think that has to be taken into consideration. The ability to make those overpayments when the good times are present, you need to take advantage of that.
Very important advice to look at maximising cash flow in those short careers and in those big liquidity years. Jeff, do you have any other final words of sage advice for anybody in this industry who's considering what their debt structure might look like?
I think the key is to look at what you've got behind you and what the projected income is going to be for a period of time. I would always want to look at to try and work out and map out what that income is going to look like over the next 5 years. It's difficult to look beyond that for most people, because most of the contract lengths don't go beyond that, whether it's endorsement or indeed contracts with clubs. Some of the endorsements for certain individuals are longer, but they're few and far between. So you really need to sort of work out cash flow over the short to medium term, and that will determine the sort of advice that you're giving.
And the need for advice then, and using a broker, very clear.
I would like to think so.